Hello, I am Addison, and I've been a graphic designer slash art director slash web developer for many, many years now. And I love talking about and sharing fun web stuff I come across. And now I do a lot of WordPress work, especially with GeneratePress and GenerateBlocks. And while this isn't specifically GenerateBlocks, I'm going to be using GenerateBlocks to talk about today's topic. I don't know. This is something that I'd kind of struggled with, and I never found a clear answer for. But I did a little deep dive for myself, and I don't do enough research. I feel like I don't have time for it, and I should make time because it makes life easier after the fact when I know more about the topic. But I'd always kind of struggled with when do I use CSS Flex versus a grid, and I'll be honest. I'd used Grid for a Flex for a long time. And I've, gotten to kind of know the ins and outs and become pretty familiar with it. I am still learning CSS Grid stuff. It feels more complex. I'm sure it's not, but it feels that way. And, thankfully, GenerateBlocks does a lot of that heavy lifting stuff for us, but I'll be doing a deep dive into that later. I know that Kyle over at the Admin Bar has done, I'm sure there are lots of other videos, but he did his Brutalist layout series, covered a lot of that stuff. Really, really good video. So anyway, I'll keep this short and sweet. I'm just going to be adding a couple of components, global classes. I'm working on my child theme and trying to slowly, as I get time, add more classes to it, because this is the site that I replicate when I begin work on a client site. Project site, whatever you want to call it. So here's my stuff, and it's a mix of these GBP prefixes are the built-in classes, and I do like to try to use those as much as possible. I've been on the fence about that too, but then I can pull down their components or their patterns when I want to use them, style them the way I want them, and then it's reflected in their pattern library that clients can use, or it's helpful to jumpstart things. But so today I'm going to add, a common grid, just probably a 2, maybe a 3 column grid component. These are built on the fly. These are pulled from their component, their pattern library off of the GenerateBlocks Pro stuff. It may be on the not Pro. I don't know. I've been on Pro so long. And I'm going to build a button group. So here's the thing. Let's go to our components. We'll go to this page, and we'll take a quick peek at, maybe we'll do the button group first, and maybe we'll do that right here. So the beautiful thing about Flex, and it's in the name, it's flexible. So it can line things up in a row. It can distribute items in a column and control the space in between those items, both horizontally and vertically. And those items can be of varying width and height. So that is one of the big differences that I came to, or the decision-making differences that helps me make that call. So let's create a container, and I'm just going to call it, I don't think I've already done that. I have done that on some client stuff. So GPC, that's the prefix I use for my classes, and I'm going to call it button group. Wait, what do are buttons? Yeah, we spell out button. Okay, GPC. It's always a hard decision coming up with class names to me, because I feel like I want a system and I need to document it or write it down, and I never do. So a blank style. Okay, so we're going to make this display flex, and it is going to default to a row dispersion. And I don't think, okay, so we're going to look at the flex layout. So it's going to default to row, but I'm going to go ahead and set it to row. And I do want it to wrap. I don't want it to be cramped up in a single line. And I'm going to give it, so with Flex and Grid, you can define the spaces in between the items. And I'm using my special, see if I can show you what it looks like. This is my child theme when I was snooping around in the plugins. Let's see. Yeah. So I have a CSS folder with the settings file that pulls in these. So utopia.fyi, that's the, yeah, okay. You can find this on GitHub in my child theme. The site's really cool. It lets you set up a responsive, what is the word? I'm going to call it a palette of sizes, a range of sizes that, you do major thirds, minor thirds, major fit, whatever, these musical kind of scales of your font sizes and spaces. So you can do, yeah, I don't want to get too much into this. You can do rims, you can do M's, you can do pixels, whatever. This is what I use. So I use these custom CSS custom properties or variables, whatever you want to call them, to create my spaces with these. They're responsive, so they kind of get bigger as the screen is bigger, and they shrink as the screen gets smaller. So that's why I'm adding these variables. So I'm going to do this as a space. We'll do medium, and I'm going to copy that and do it for the row gap as well. So the row gap is vertical, the column gap is the horizontal space. Okay, so we have, I'm going to leave that as it is for now. Okay, so we have that. So now let's add a button to it. And we're going to give that our button style, button primary. You can see this is the GBP, so this was pulled from the GenerateBlocks pattern library. We'll just call it a button. And I'm going to put in just a, yeah. Ooh. And then I'm using my keyboard shortcut, Shift Control D for duplicate. And we'll call this a longer button. And then I'm going to duplicate that, and we're going to call it a butt. And now you can already kind of see, going to save that. And save it, and save it, and save it. And there we go. I'm going to refresh. Okay, so that space is a little big, but you get the idea. So, and if I reduce it, it should, whoa, not like that. Okay. Yeah, so it wraps to the next line, and that's what I wanted. But that space feels quite large, so let's, ooh, not that one. Let's select the wrapper. So here's my button group. I'm going to reduce that to small. Yeah, that's a little better. What does extra small look like? You can do excess. Actually, I kind of like that. Whoop. Okay. So that's that. And yes, do save that, please. And Flex is used for things like this, as well as for things like your navigation menu. It is, so yeah, you can see Flex working here. Love the inspector. Yep. And I could do my, my alignment so that it's aligned, it centers. I'm not going to worry about that right now. Anyway, you get the idea. Flex is great for, and so before Grid became prominent, Flex, Bootstrap is a good example, and also GenerateBlocks. Flex was used for the layout grids, and you can make them fixed in width, but you kind of have to go around the world and add some additional properties. Whereas Grid, now that it's more prominent and browsers are supporting it, it's much better for layouts. So it lets you create these fixed width spaces, whereas this, because it's flexible, it grows, and there are even properties for can this element shrink? Can it grow? Things like that. But it expands and it just distributes items in a row or a column or both. And there you have it. That's how it works. Whereas a grid, you have a very fixed space that will constrain the items within each column. So here's grid, and this is just out of the box, pulled from the pattern library. CSS Grid is made for layouts. It's made for text columns and images and content, editorial style layout kind of stuff. And it just works much better for that. And you can adjust the size of the columns in varying degrees using that great, what does FR stand for? Is it fraction? I can't remember. So given this repeating stuff, I'm not gonna, yeah. Well, okay, so 3, and there it wraps to the next line. So it can wrap as well. And I don't know if you have to tell it that. It may be that repeating. So let's see if I do this. If I do here, I'm going to copy that. And then, so let's say I do 1 FR, 2 FR, 1 FR. Okay, it does wrap. And it's just, it's just repeating to the next line. But I can also do, let's see, 100 pixels, which is not nearly enough. And it is going to distribute it in the space that's remaining. And it'll do all that calculation for you. So, I mean, come on, that's pretty cool. And you get way fancier with it. So, yeah. So that's it. That's all I'm going to talk about today. So when you're choosing between Flex and Grid, Flex, think flexible. The items that you're distributing are in varying widths or can be in varying widths, like a navigation menu or a group of buttons, sometimes a gallery even, or a group of photos, maybe in a row. But when you're doing layout and you need 3-4 columns of text, or maybe cards, things like that, that's when you use Grid, because it is fixed and it will constrain the items within each column to the exact width that you specify. So yeah, hope that helps. That helped me immensely to begin making that decision more easily. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. You guys have a great week. Please like, subscribe. Have a great weekend too. It's Friday right now. I don't know when you watch this video, but right now it's Friday and it's morning, so I'm having coffee. You guys take care, and see you the next time.